Welcome to Agency Acquisitions and Exits. I'm your host, Peter Lang, but I'm not your host today. Yaya is. And so for a special edition, a former guest and someone I actually work closely with through my board advisory role of Vesa Digital is going to interrogate me. The tables have turned. So we hope that this is a fun change of tone from our typical episodes, but it's your show now, Yaya. Take it.
Appreciate it. Yeah, look at that. The student becomes the master. I get to take over at least for today. No, I really appreciate it, Peter. It means a lot to give me this responsibility and honor to be on the other side of this with you. Obviously, as you just mentioned, we work together at Vesa Digital. We've done a few deals together now, and I've had the honor to learn directly from you. And I think there's a couple of areas that have really shaped me in my M&A journey. I'm less than 12 months in, but we're 3 acquisitions deep at this point and moving quickly. So I think that there's a couple of pieces that I really wanted to dive into. I'll try to do is kind of like start us out with the general learnings, and then we'll get more specific over time. I think the biggest thing, thinking about my journey and the things that you've taught me early on, what separates a good agency to buy from this is a great deal?
The number one predictor of value creation is cultural fit. And so the rubric that we're using to assess whether or not something's good or bad is heavily weighted to you as the buyer, defining that culture first, and then aligning everyone else to that. I see a lot of small businesses that have yet to really identify their core values, really have a solid vision of what they want to create, what problem they're solving, or the product and service that they create value with in the marketplace. And therefore, it's really hard for a business to fit within that narrative. And so the good businesses are ones that, A, have figured out what it is that makes them good, so others can see it in them when they go to buy them.
Yeah. You just mentioned something interesting in there, which is the culture fit through the acquisition of my agency, Shadow, which you also helped shepherd over at Vesa Digital. The biggest takeaway for me that I always tell people about was how collaborative the deal-making process was. In the movies and in TV shows, you're shown that negotiations is all hardball, and I have to just out-negotiate the other guy, and I have to read every Chris Voss book that's out there in order to get the best deal. But it really...
Never split the difference. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. But it really didn't feel that way. It felt collaborative. It felt that we were all just trying to get to a win-win. And now, having done a few deals with you, that is my favorite part of working with you, that you can get really creative in how we put these deals together. But as people are starting to approach M&A and wanting to do M&A themselves, I'm sure people are just looking for, just give me the template and then I'll just plug in numbers and then I'll present that to the seller. So how do you kind of bridge that gap in between, okay, I have to learn the foundations, but then getting creative with the deal making?
I say it in a very polarizing way, which is M&A is easy and people get lazy. Once they figure out a formula or a deal structure, they default to it. Mm-hmm. I lose a little bit of energy with that. Like, I like efficiencies and standard operating procedures, but at the same time, I like to test my own limits on deal making and creativity. And I also know that every deal brings its own challenges and risks. So you should kind of prioritize the calibration of the deal structure to the asset. And so how I generally think about it is there's a range of value you can create in a deal. Someone asked me once, what's my favorite deal structure? And I said 100% seller finance. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm selling an asset, what's my favorite deal structure? 100% cash on close.
100% cash on close.
And so if we know those are the two ends of the spectrum, there's this huge range in between as you're assessing risk, opportunity, and what you can create as value when you're going out and buying. And that's the game. That's the real fun part. Additionally, I think of M&A as a skill set, which it is. It's an entire profession. It's an entire academic category. So corporate business developments and corporate finance. So if you think about it, how do I get better at something? It's not by doing the same thing over and over. It's about challenging how effective I can be when the lights are brightest, when it matters most. And so that takes diving into it and figuring out deal structures. And so the only way I've found to really do that productively is to not negotiate, collaborate. As a default, how I kind of provide context around that when I'm interacting with businesses is say the entire industry is incentivized on the transaction. So maximizing the transaction from transaction attorneys, brokers, buyer, and the sellers, they're all trying to get the most that they can because that's where the economic incentive is. Like, we're going to do a deal. But the value creation is what happens after the deal. And all the risk is the uncertainty of that value creation, especially when dealing with smaller enterprises. P is a different box. We're talking about a different caliber of investment. But when you're a smaller business or an SME, small to mid-sized enterprise, and you're going out and buying another company, you're interacting at such a human, similar scale that it needs to be, this is what it looks like, let's figure it out, versus this is my offer. Now you negotiate against that, and let me tell you all the reasons why that's not going to work. Let's just figure out the safest way to do a deal. And that's usually going to have a tone of collaboration, not negotiation.
Yeah. And the interesting benefit that comes with that, maybe overlooked benefit that comes with that, is the fact that it oftentimes makes you stand out from other buyers as well. Other buyers that are just trying to fit you into a box, and it's like, okay, here's the offer and that's it. And if you can just get creative with it, I think that gives you an advantage. I think, however,
let me give you a metaphor. So a musician, like some people can play those piano games where the lights highlight which key to press, right, to create music. That's a lot of types of buyers. But masters of something can imagine sound, imagine kind of rhythm, and create music. And so there's a big difference between mastery and just kind of like the beginnings of learning to create music. And so what I often think of in a deal, or at least in interactions with businesses, the more experience you have, the more creativity you can apply to the discipline. You still have to know how to do it. You need to know the chords. You need to know what sounds good. But again, you're not able to tap into creativity until you've mastered the foundations. And so just factor that most buyers don't know how to buy. And that's across all levels. You're not typically taught how to buy something. You're taught how to do a transaction and then take control over something. So the standard operating procedure around buying to grow something is not well versed by buyers. And value creation as a probability is very low. So statistics kind of teeter into is more successful than venture, new startups, but it still has a high failure rate. So a higher probability of failure than value creation. So again, the issue that I often have here is imagine an unsophisticated seller selling their business to an unsophisticated buyer. And it doesn't mean that the buyer's business is not sophisticated. They just don't have the reps to be a buyer. And just hiring an M&A attorney, an accountant, or a CFO, hiring the people who help support the deal doesn't give that knowledge and competency and skill to the buyer. It helps them do the transaction and then they're gone. So again, I'm a firm believer that collaboration, teaching buyers to be better buyers, supporting sellers to become better sellers is how we bridge that gap.
Yeah. Very well said. Now, that requires effort. Like you said, people get lazy with it, and it requires effort to be creative, to look at the deals from all different types of angles that you can in trying to figure something out. In order to do that, you want to make sure that the seller is motivated enough that that's worth the effort. So how do you differentiate in between someone who is a motivated seller versus someone who's a tire kicker or just exploring?
I have the luxury of a lot of reps. So for me, it's pattern recognition. And when we systemize it for folks who are just starting out, it's about asking questions that help you as a prospective buyer gauge whether or not someone is going to make a decision to sell this business because life is going to be better if they sold than if they kept it themselves. And so we break the word motivation into two Latin roots, motive and action. So motive meaning reason, and then action meaning, of course, action. And you have to have a big enough reason for action in all things in life. So you have to find the reason. It's kind of similar to finding the why in something. And a lot of people are not able to articulate reason or why. So it takes a little bit of rapport building, collaboration, nurturing, coaching to help them figure out how to disclose, how to share the big enough motivation, the big enough reason that would lead to the action of selling. If, cut and dry ones are, of course, say, and we met a seller last week, 50-50 partners with, and his father died at 62. And it helped, and he recalibrated his life, saying, I don't want to delay retirement and enjoyment of life because I'm putting 70 hours, 80 hours into the startup, into this business. And so I need a partner. We need to sell either the entire business or bring on an equity partner. So I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here and not sacrificing the youth and energy that I have because he's now, considering a different direction of how he uses his personal time. So that's a big enough reason for him to take action. Others have spouses. It could be a spouse, you're 84 years old and your wife says, why are you still working? Or your husband saying, why are you still working? And they're like, all right, you got to sell. You got to retire. or you can get married, or you can have kids, or you can have all sorts of life factors that create a reason for an action. And those are where people lose the conversation around what's a motivated seller. Motivated seller is not someone who says, pay me enough and I'll sell you the business. That's not a motivated seller. Most likely that's a hand raise of unsophisticated ignorance, because all businesses trade for a certain value and all businesses can figure out what they're worth. So if you're waiting for some buyer to show up and tell you what they're willing to pay you, and you don't even know the basic math, again, you're probably not going to get the outcome in your tire kicker.
Yeah. Yeah. And the almost flip side of that question or of that challenge is when you're dealing with sellers that have just unrealistic expectations. You obviously, your program and you teach a lot about like sourcing your own deals, but especially if you're getting deals from platforms, we won't mention any names now. A lot of times when people just go out of their way to list their agency on one of these platforms, that most likely means that they have some unrealistic expectations as to what the agency is worth. How do you bring a seller back down to reality without killing the deal?
Well, let's start this with a question. How many acquisitions have you been a part of where the business was listed or represented by a broker when it closed?
None.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
80% of businesses that are listed for sale don't. I'm looking at buying a brokerage now, and I've done due diligence on a bunch of brokerages. They don't have high success rates. So they'll sign on an engagement, and it ranges between 25 to 50% success rate on finding a buyer for a seller. And so if you think of that as kind of an access to what the opportunity is for a seller, it's not very good probability. And those folks are incentivized by the transaction. So making the transaction enough for them to get what they are going to get rewarded financially from it. So all the incentives kind of point towards setting a high bar of value. And there are people who get it. I interview them quite frequently. And I've been fortunate to have it. But the reality is the vast majority of businesses don't qualify for that. And so it's kind of just the general reality of maybe you're not 6'8". Maybe you don't have natural talent and the NBA is not for you. You're not going to be a top 400 plus basketball players in America.
Yeah.
There is a natural filtering. And when someone's been telling you since, you got to a certain size in business that you're worth more than you thought, the thing that I try to give people is the ability to self-research their actual valuation. Not just I've been told by one broker, I've been told by one party. The goal, and this is the benefit that I have by having an education platform, is I say, go learn it. I'm not here to negotiate against you. You should know what you're worth. And if you got it from one person who's incentivized, show me who you paid to tell you what you're worth. Tell me how they get paid, and I'll tell you the bias associated with it. So go research. Come back to me when you're prepared. Again, that it's the simple way of just saying no and passing on them. I feel for them. If you got a cold outreach from a broker who said, hey, I have a prospective buyer who's interested in your business, which is most of the time BS. They're trying to do prospecting for your, new listings and new opportunities to take people to market. And we think we can get you a multiple that's above what is appropriate or relevant for your size. That's smoke and mirror. That's marketing. That's lead gen for brokerage firms. Most businesses trade for their average multiples. Most. And there's times when it's a strategic buyer can give you more value than you're potentially worth as fair market value or your liquidation value. But again, that's atypical. Know where you are. I also use fitness. Yeah, you recently become super fit, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Like kind of know your fitness level. It's the same way of knowing the business of what your value is. Businesses need to be measuring a KPI that's not very common, which is enterprise value. So they need to understand their current tradable fair market value and potential strategic value. Doesn't mean that's what they're worth today, but it means their potential. Just like you need to know your potential for fitness. And then it helps you set a goal. And then you need to figure out how to measure it with some great frequency. But if you're the 45-year-old and you go play basketball with the high school kids, that's how you blow out a knee. Like that's how you get injured, is when you have the wrong expectations and you try to play a game you're no longer suited for.
That's a great analogy, because so often we focus on goal setting and it's like, yeah, this is the goals that we have. But in order to get to the goal, you have to kind of be able to draw a line from A to B, and A being where you're currently at. And you have to just be very realistic with your current state. If I'm the 40-year-old and I go play pick up basketball, I'm going to blow out an Achilles. But if I know that like, okay, I want to go pick up basketball, I'm not there today. What do I need to do in order to get there? And I think that's something similar. I did Alex Hormozi's scaling workshop about a year before Vesa approached me. And the exercise that we did on the first day was basically just trying to find our enterprise value. And then through finding the enterprise value, you can very quickly identify, okay, which are the items that are keeping my enterprise value down, and how can I work on them? And then you can start working on them and you can start improving them before actually having the conversations.
Yep. It's fun because it's simple. It's actually quite simple. You just didn't know it. Now I will bridge one concept in this analogy, which is I may want to run a 2:10 marathon. I may want to run it in a year. I may not be physically capable of hitting the milestones to accomplish that goal. And so it is important to have people around you who can help temper expectations to your current state and the reality of the ecosystem, the market, your limitations as a founder. You need a coach. You need someone who's going to provide you feedback. And a strong predictor of businesses that scale are who they have around them as advisors who've done it before. And that's the same predictor within organizations that grow, is they typically have people in that company that did it before.
Yeah. Another thing that I've seen from you a few times, and you just mentioned you have the luxury of having a lot of reps, but you are very comfortable in walking away from a deal when it's not the right deal. How do you know when it's worth to stay in the fight? And how do you know when it's something where we'll walk away and if it's right, they'll come back later?
It's a good question. I would say the easiest position I have is I get so much deal flow. So for me, it's been a very fortunate position of saying I get the same opportunity next week. So I'm not emotionally attached to, this is a fleeting opportunity or scarcity. That doesn't exist. One thing's been true since I came back from sabbatical and made M&A my primary focus, which was I just continue to get what other people get as once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, like once a month. Mm-hmm. I have to say no to more things than yes. And so I default to no. And then when it comes to how I allocate time or capital dependent on the opportunity, I just do a very detailed preliminary due diligence process. And people self-select out. So if you're not willing to provide the level of information that I request before I calibrate, so I can appropriately calibrate risk and then therefore create an offer, then you're gone anyway. So again, the advantage is I often see people from proprietary, which means they're not ready to sell. So I get access early, and therefore I have many things in the pipeline that are transactions I could do at the end of next year, not just today. And there's business that I'm watching from an investment perspective. Again, when they fall out, is the business underperformed to its expectations? I don't have a thesis that I can move on, and therefore the timing just doesn't align, or the founder lied to me. There's something off within our core values.
Yeah. And that's where having a strong foundation, meaning a strong process, is so beneficial as well. I was obviously lucky enough to go through your program, and having that roadmap of steps that you want to go through in order to lead up to a sale or an acquisition, that gives you the confidence to, if you're not willing to follow these steps, then that's an easy no for me. We've had it now several times where people will not move into the audit step, for example, until we tell them how much we're going to pay for your agency. And it's like, no, hold on, that's backwards. I got to first know everything about your agency before I can tell you what it's worth. And if they're not willing to follow it, then you can confidently say, okay, then not a good fit for us at this time.
Yeah. The example you're giving there is usually broker-led deals where the seller and the owners feel like they've prepared enough to get offers before they spend more time getting invested into by the buyer. And the disappointing thing is there are plenty of times when it's enough, but the vast majority of businesses aren't buyable. Like you can't acquire them. And so everything you're trying to figure out is how to buy them, because in their current state, they're not. And the data rooms, the marketing materials, are pageantry. They're just trying to give you enough information so they can vet buyers, because there's plenty of tire kicker buyers too. Mm-hmm. It's not just tire kicker sellers. There's a lot of people who are aspirational buyers and just do not have what it takes to buy.
Yeah.
The number one predictor of whether or not someone will buy you is whether or not they bought someone else before. So if they've never done it before, they have a low probability of doing something. And so we just ask for a lot more information. And the reason for that is simple. Our job is to help a seller by preparing them through the buying process. Meaning, if you've been approached by me or any business that's gone through my training and my M&A process, probably end up more aware of your business and its opportunity in the marketplace than when you started. And that's the promise we make. Now, we're going to do the pressure testing that if we don't move forward, should make your presentation of your assets better for anyone else who buys you. And that goes from our questionnaires, from the level of preliminary due diligence, for the ways we discuss the uncertainty and the potential for the business by joining forces with the buyer. And my entire disposition is we're an operating company acquiring other companies that are similar to us to create value. So it's kind of a basic formula. And I believe all businesses need to have anywhere between 40 to 60% inorganic growth annually. Private equity does. There's no reason why you can't, especially if even if you're starting small.
Yeah. And you just mentioned the questionnaire. I refer to it as the audit, same step in the process. Even just that part of it, I've had so many agency owners now go through it, and it's a commitment, right? It's 120 questions or so. It will take some time to actually go through it and answer everything. And every single one of them has gotten back to me and said, that was so awesome. I learned so much about our business. And I've had all of these things in my head for so long, and now I finally see them in front of me on paper. So it's, even if they don't go through with the deal, there's already value that was provided.
It's the same steps you did when you went to Alex's event.
Yeah.
Rather than paying a consultant or paying someone to tell you to do it to yourself, you have a buyer asking you to do it. That's it. It's the same steps. Answer the questions, unpack the business, know what your business is worth, and then know what your business is worth to us so you understand the options. There's a buying criteria for every type of buyer. Just know if that's the opportunity that exists for you or not. I don't always use it, but because it sometimes falls flat. But the metaphor I like to give is from dating. You know, the attractiveness of people is measured between 1 and 10.
Yeah.
And they go, well, you're like a 6 and you're going after a 10, right? That whole thing. Like, you have to also know, like, who you're positioned best for. And that's buyer-seller alignment. Just because you want to sell to some billion-dollar private equity fund who's going to pay you significant overvalue doesn't mean they're going to buy you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to say, who will buy me? Who buys companies like my current version? And then am I willing to do what it takes to make it more valuable? Can I actually increase the measure of opportunity for what I've created? And so again, it's just misalignment there. I always find it useful when sellers can quantify the multiple return for the buyer. I know why you're buying me, and I know how me joining you is going to make us more money. If they don't know that, you're going into something rather unprepared.
Yeah. And I think part of that alignment, and coincidentally enough, every single deal that we've done together, including the acquisition of my agency and now all the deals we've done at Vesa, have been acqui-hire deals. So there, obviously, the alignment even goes, I think, a level further. Talk a little bit more about acqui-hire deals, what they are, what's the pros and cons of them, and maybe why they're less common in the agency space.
They're extremely common. They're just not discussed that much. So the important thing to set as context is the buying size of Vesa. So when Vesa started, it was just a smaller agency. And so I typically, and in the course I teach, 30% your employee count is kind of the first deal that is safe to do. You don't go out and buy something that would be culturally disruptive. So if you have 30 people, 30%, how many people are you buying? 10 people, your max. Don't go more than 10, because then you're bringing a whole slew of people who's going to change the energy and the culture of the business. But if I'm a 30-person company and I acquire a 3 to 4-person agency, that can be safely integrated because it's not too different than adding team members. So we think of it as acqui-hire because we're able to assimilate the team into the company without it being a full other organization. And then it also comes with a book of business. And so the other advantage is you're essentially buying books of businesses. And what I find fascinating is, let's say you're a $3 million in revenue agency who's still founder-led sales. And yeah, play with me on this one.
Yep.
You want to build succession for yourself, so you're going to hire a salesperson, right?
Right.
And maybe hire 2, because that's what they always tell you. Always hire 2 so they can kind of work against each other, right? Now, how long does it take for one of those sales reps to be hired, onboarded, and start closing deals?
3 to 6 months, maybe,
Cool.
if you're lucky. Yeah.
So they're starting to close deals. how long before they actually make more money than they cost?
Depends on how good they are, but I would assume another 3 to 6 months.
Okay, so we're in the 9 to 12 months range, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you invest as a company in a new hire, train them, onboard them, and you hope they're successful. So you have their salary cost for 9 months. To close how many deals? Well, it depends on what you've closed historically, of course, and et cetera. But let's just say close the first few deals that justify their role. So maybe brought in 3 or 4 accounts. Took you a year. How many accounts did you close in one of your acqui-hire deals?
Right. Yeah. Well, we just did Build Creative and they brought on, I think it was 20-ish clients.
Yeah, in your best year, how many deals can you close a year?
Yeah. I mean, right around there, maybe if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Right.
So
like 2 deals a month.
A year's worth of sales performance added in a single transaction. How long did it take to do that transaction from when you first reached out and when you closed?
That was a fast one. I think that took about 2.5 months.
2.5 months. To do 2.5 months of investment of time and energy to bring in what would take you a year plus in sales. So as long as you can structure these deals in a way that's not significantly burdensome, meaning too much debt or too much capital or too much uncertainty that's being burdened by the buyer, you've grown faster than hiring a sales rep in 1 year, compressing time. And how many of those do you think you can do?
A lot. One a month, one every other month.
Yeah, describe the trappings of this. Because when I describe it, of course, people fundamentally go, yeah, of course. But you've seen it firsthand. What do these type of businesses look like?
So just to strengthen that point that you were making about the salespeople too, is that I think as a founder, what I was thinking about as you were describing this, yes, I hired the salesperson, 1 or 2 salespeople. It takes them 3 to 6 months to get started and 3 to 6 months to start closing deals. But you're actively involved in that the entire time. Right? It's not like you're just going to hire somebody and it's like, all right, good luck. You're going to have to train and you're going to have to hold meetings and do call reviews and do role play. Like there's so many things that you still have to do. And when we did the Bell Creative acquisition, that was really that aha moment for me. I had seen the acquisition from the sell side in selling my own agency, but seeing the Bell Creative deal work out, and I think you made this comment during one of our pipeline reviews where it was like, yeah, we just added 20 clients the second that he signed this contract. And that was such a light bulb moment for me where I just went, I get it now. This is all starting to make sense now. Like we literally just did the work of a salesperson for a year in the 2.5 months. And on top of that, I think the cherry on top is that Colin, the founder, now also has joined us and now also is continuously adding value on top of that. And I think that you asked me kind of like about the trappings of the deal. I think for us working in the space that we're working in the kind of like buy box that we're currently at, which is the 750 to $1 million EBITDA range or so, a lot of the founders that we're approaching, these are proprietary deals. They're not listed on any platforms. So they haven't really thought about selling. And most of them think that, oh, I'm not ready for that yet. This is something that comes later in my journey. So I think first having that conversation with them. And then the biggest hurdle to overcome, I believe, for us has always been, well, but if I hold on to it for longer, I can sell it for more later. And then kind of overcoming that objection by saying, absolutely, yes, you can hold on to it longer and you can sell it for more later. Or you can come join us and we can do this together. And we can take some of the things that you don't like doing off of your plate. We can amplify the things that you do like doing and can help you support you in that. I think Colin is such an awesome example. He always, and I think this is a lot of agency owners, he always wanted to do more marketing. But operations and admin and clients continue dragging you down and continue keeping you busy, and you can never do the things that you really want to do. Colin actually in his free time, this is how cool this is a Twitch streamer. So he streams on Twitch. That's what he does as a free time. So he's always wanted to also do that for the agency. So we've now brought him on. He's our new head of growth, and he's now hosting all of our webinars. And he just hosted a massive webinar with Webflow, one of our platform partners. And now he's in front of the camera doing what he loves because he doesn't have to do these other things anymore. So it's that double, it's that win-win that we're talking about. I mean, we're structuring a deal with him. That's exactly what it was. I think him making money and cashing out of the agency in a way was one thing, but I think the other thing was just like, hey, let us take the things you don't like to do off of your plate. Let us amplify everything else, and we'll still grow together. We'll most likely grow faster, but you'll also just enjoy it, be surrounded by better people, have advisors, and just do it at a much faster pace.
Yep. Folks who found themselves running a small business and not doing the thing that they wished they were doing when they started the business, and getting an offer from someone who's going to enable that. I mean, every operating business today can do those types of deals. You just got to put in the effort to find them because they're not out there raising their hand. They don't even think they qualify for a deal. No one's telling them that they can even be acquired or they can use their business as a form of entry into greater opportunities. It's called pay price for entry. They get to transact their asset to get greater opportunity because they really aren't the founder to grow the business much further than they've gotten it today. There's more accidental entrepreneurs than there are true entrepreneurs. And how do you find out if you're an athlete or not? You go do a sport and go, I didn't win.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some other factors that would have to be in play for me to achieve the pinnacle of that. And not everybody needs to be that. We need people who produce and contribute in all sorts of roles in all sorts of ways. And that's fine. That's perfect. So my biggest takeaway for most is just do a few of these first. Low risk, high probability acqui-hire type deals where you're acquiring books of business, acquiring some talent who can contribute to the organization, and do 1 or 2 of those a year. And you're going to grow much faster than you're going to grow organically, which you're having firsthand experience both selling in and now being the active M&A role buying. And it's just a different way of growing companies that most don't know about. And then the last caveat I'll give to it, and this is kind of my concern, is it sounds easy to communicate to the marketplace, which it is, but then they don't have the discipline. Because it's so small, they skip the little things. And this is where the divide between me and founders begins to happen, which is I am very, very strict on following standard operating procedures to avoid casualties, to avoid blowing up after the deal's done. It's really easy to do deals. Deals are so easy to do. Everything after the fact is hard. And so all the little things that we do throughout the deal helps increase the probability of positive outcomes after we close.
Yeah. One additional benefit too that I just want to mention for people thinking about doing acqui-hire deals is the benefit to the seller. You mentioned earlier in the conversation, one of the highest predictors of success is who you're surrounding yourself with and who the people around you are. In situations where you have the accidental entrepreneur, which a lot of agency owners are, what you just mentioned is they become the bottleneck at some point. And I remember this as the founder myself, like that pressure that you feel to the rest of your team, that I continuously have to level up myself in order to make sure that the agency continues leveling up. And when joining an agency such as what Vesa is doing, we believe we talk about ourselves as a founder-led network at this point. And it was for me so awesome. And now I pitch this to potential acqui-hire deals, is joining a network with people that are surrounding you that are better at what they do than you were. So there's people now at Vesa that are better in sales than I was. We have operations managers who are better in operations than I was. We have incredible advisors like you or Felix Velarde who I can tap into at any point in time that I want to. And I have leveled up so much. It does 2 things. One, it removes that pressure. Like I felt my shoulders drop for the first time because it's like, oh, it's not all on me. But then also it helps you level up. And I think that there's always another opportunity further down the road. We're all going to continue playing this game. So it's like in 5 years, I'm going to be a better founder than I would have been if I wouldn't have done this deal. I learned so much. I understand so much more now. I have access. I have network. So it's also that like you're going to level yourself up to a completely different standard.
Yeah, you're going to develop at some pace. Right, an entrepreneur, you're going to develop as the business grows. The entrepreneurs who are like you, which are not that many, who want to learn the M&A stuff, want to learn the business buying. You've only been with Vesa now for 6 months, 7 months?
Yeah, that's right.
You already bought companies.
Yeah.
So through selling your own business, you learned one side of M&A, and now you've led the buying initiative within 6 months. So if you were to just compare that to your professional development roadmap, if you were still the owner of Shadow Digital, and now you've learned a skill, buying companies is a skill. Standard operating procedure, it's a skill. You can improve every aspect of it. That transfers to any vertical. It's ridiculous. And so I always like to kind of give that as perspective for people, which is the highest level of professional maturity is private equity. So, there's the old 4 quadrants. It's investor level. It's the buying and selling of assets. And what's your most valuable asset? Well, probably your current business. If you learn how to sell that and then go buy other ones just like it or vice versa, switch it over, you've gained a skill that allows you to apply that to any vertical that you're interested in. And the best way to learn it is with context, and the context of your own business where you have the domain expertise and mastery to a certain extent. And so again, if you quit Vesa today, don't do it. It's on the but if you quit today, you are so valuable as an individual now compared to where you were 6 to 7 months previously. And now all of that knowledge and experience can be used as contributions into an even bigger organization, leading your own initiatives through M&A. You've opened up an entire new tier of professional status, and people don't think of it that way. They go, oh, I said no to this deal because it wasn't the right opportunity. If it has minimal consequence and you can experiment by doing it, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you just try to learn and get involved in this next phase of administration of business assets? And then you're not afraid of AI. You're not afraid of clients leaving or people leaving, because now you have a standard operating procedure, something you've done before. You have experience in finding businesses that have reached a certain point of maturity and figuring out the next phase for them.
Yeah. Just yesterday, I was listening to a podcast with Kevin Hart, out of all people, and he's talking about how you want to get a glimpse behind the curtain, but sometimes you don't even know that there are people behind that curtain if you don't go look. And I had that same feeling, even just in selling my own agency before the deal got done. Once I started talking to you, you explained to me how M&A works. You explained to me where we're trying to go, the entire thesis behind Vesa. I describe it to people as if I was playing a game right in front of me, and I was just looking straight down at the table in front of me. And that's how I was playing the chess game, if you will. And what you allowed me to do was, hey, just pick up your head just for a second. Just look up. There's some other stuff out there. And it's almost as if the second you pick up your head, you can't just put your head back down. It's like, oh, I see it now. Like there's so many more moving pieces to all of this. And once you've seen it, yeah, you can't unsee it. And that's exactly what this M&A process did to me, and I think is doing to a lot of other founders that we're talking to right now as well.
You get a lot of the credit though. There's courage required in making decisions. There's a lot of people who become aware of doing this and learn how to do it, yet they still can't press the button. They still can't execute it. And so there's different levels to maximizing your life's opportunity and saying yes to things that have varying degrees of uncertainty. And you selling your business has a big uncertainty to it. And then being able to be confident in yourself to maximize that opportunity given the uncertainty anyway. Again, I believe in agency owners as a very specific category, because most agency owners, even accidental ones, are problem solvers. I believe that a lot of them can use that desire for multiple stimulus, meaning many, many clients who bring lots of different types of problems for them to solve, use that complexity, use that uncertainty, learn how to buy so they can learn how to sell, and then mature to the highest level of professional capability, which is being an investor. And you can do that in your 20s. You can do that in your 30s. You can do it at any age. You just have to know that there are steps to follow and then have the courage. So big kudos to you for having the courage.
Appreciate that. Thanks so much, Peter. You sit on the other side of this microphone usually and get to ask the questions. But what are maybe some of the things that people don't know about M&A that you don't get to talk about in the conversations that you've had in the 50 episodes that you've done? Congratulations, by the way. That maybe what are some topics that you haven't been able to talk about enough that you want people to know about?
Buying and selling are the same exact steps. It's done in different orders. And if you had a choice to increase the probability of you selling for a meaningful, we call it successful exit, a meaningful amount of financial outcome, practice buying first. And no one really highlights that. The importance of learning to buy to prepare you to sell, it can't be understated.
Yeah.
The other one I would say is the people talk about luck. It's not luck. There's some degree of timing, some degree of luck at the very, very end. All deals are trying to die, so they take discipline and diligence to get them over the line to close. But a lot of people who then say it's luck just don't put in the work. It's really just work. Just work in a different way and in a different effort than you were taught. And the general thesis around roll-ups or aggregation of it, like-minded or similar businesses is service providers. So service providers, which is what you were, and it's what a lot of the acqui-hires are, and most small businesses are actually. You're a service provider, means you have a pro customer mindset, pro-solution mindset.
Mhm.
You don't have a pro-business mindset. And where we get lost, like the delta between M&A and those who don't get these type of opportunities, is they don't realize it's just an entire mindset shift. You have to go to pro-business, not at the sacrifice of service, of course, but you have to think, like, what's the opportunity? What's the end goal? And there's plenty of people who say, permanent, hold forever, create beautiful businesses that people want to buy. There's a lot of opinions out there, but the general assessment is all the people I've interviewed all at some point knew that they were going to sell their business, and they also knew others who sold businesses like theirs. And if you ask founders, they don't.
Yeah. I have a closing tradition in the podcast that I host, which is I believe people are out there consuming way too much content nowadays. We go from one podcast to the next, reading this book, watching a YouTube video, watching a bunch of TikToks, and you're getting all this information in your head, but no one's actually taking action on anything. So what I try to do is toward the end of the episode, give one actionable thing that like the second this episode is done, somebody can go and implement. So maybe on that last piece that you were just talking about, I'm an agency owner right now. I'm listening to this and I say, all right, Peter, I'm in. Let me do this. What's an actionable step that I can actually take maybe to switch that mindset, maybe to start moving things into the direction of becoming customer focused or business focused?
You got to make it real for you. You got to make it real for you, or else it's hard to justify the why. And so the first step would be go to Google, go to AI, pick one, doesn't matter. Plug in your business. So if you're a digital agency, a creative agency, a PR agency, an IT service, whatever the business is, and search for someone who's been acquired, who looks like you.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be a list of people, and reach out to the founder who sold the business and say, I run the same kind of business that you sold. I saw you sold to this party, whether it be a private equity firm or strategic, and say, I've been really curious about exiting at some point, and I'd love to have some, input and get some advice. Would you be open to a call? Guess what? They'll give you that time. Say, what made you an attractive acquisition target? And as long as you don't have your AI following you around, oftentimes they'll disclose the economics too.
Mm-hmm.
And so what'd you sell for? How big was the company? And then what advice do you have for someone like me? And that's the number one thing, is be around other people where this is the norm.
Yeah.
Whether it's fitness, being healthy, right? Signing up for a marathon, you go around other people who are doing marathons. Next thing you know, you're doing a triathlon because you're around a bunch of other people doing triathlon. Pick the thing, pick the vice. And there's always a group that if you're in that group, you'll do more of those things. Same thing goes with M&A and exiting. It's go talk to people who have experienced it. Don't go talk to the investment bankers. Don't go talk to the people who are paid to give you a certain perspective. Go talk to founders who have actually done it and get advice. Make it real, and then figure out your why.
Love that. Amazing. Well, Peter, you are one of, if not the person for me. I really mean this. I appreciate you giving me this honor to interview you, but I really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate everything that you've done for me throughout the selling process, throughout buying the agencies, everything that you have taught me throughout this entire process. You've made this very real for me. You've also made it digestible and understandable, and going through your course, giving real steps that you can follow. I really hope that more people get access to that, because I don't say this lightly. You changed my life. You've now also helped me change the life of 3 founders that we've acquired already. So I think that this just exponentially multiplies in that way.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Yaya.
Thank you.
If you like this episode, probably like one of our other episodes, click here.